For these, unless it's like a super important episode, I'm perfectly okay with having things spoiled. Like if someone had spoiled
season premiere,
yeah, I would have like absolutely swung at someone.
That's totally different. And honestly, that's all you really have to see before seeing this episode. Like this episode delves into a lot of backstory. It does something that I don't like that it's trying to do, and I'll get into that. But this whole story, and again, I'm not a fan of what they're doing with splitting up the story arcs, like having, Rick's group going back to Alexandria, and Daryl's been taken captive by Negan, and then over here you've got Morgan and Carol in the kingdom, and then you've got other people out doing other things, and I'm not a fan of that when they do that. I like it when everyone's together and you're telling one, maybe two stories, but that's it. So, but unfortunately, that's where we are right now. And this whole episode focused on Daryl, of course, being taken captive by the Saviors. They have him locked up in a cell. And this is Dwight that's doing all this stuff to him, by the way. Like, Dwight is in charge of basically breaking Daryl to be one of Negan's men. Which I'm sure you saw that's where that was going to go after the season premiere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and they threw him in the back of the van and whatnot.
It's like you don't get rid of that.
Right. So Negan's trying to break Daryl down, and how they're doing it, well, the only food he's getting is sandwiches made with dog food. And they are playing this horrible, horrible song that's not even like a real song, but it's just like this really like poppy, like 60s kind of sounding song called, like, I guess it's called Easy Street, and it's like really corny. The lyrics are corny, and it does create an interesting juxtaposition between Daryl in this like cell with no lights, just a door. At first, he doesn't even have any clothes to wear, and they finally give him like some kind of like prisoner uniform. But they just torture him by playing this song all the time, feeding him dog food, and what we learned during this time, we learned a lot more about Dwight. And before I go into what we learn about Dwight, it's actually interesting because Dwight's character is in the comics. And the reason why Dwight's character is in the comics is because of Daryl. Now, Daryl, of course, is not a character in the comics. He was made exclusively for the TV show, or written for the TV show. But Dwight was kind of made to be like the Daryl of the comics. So it's neat now that they're kind of, I guess, meeting each other, because they're supposed to be very close as far as attitude and character and all of that. So you see a lot of shots of Dwight wearing Daryl's vest with the angel wings on the back, using his motorcycle, using his crossbow, which in an interview that I read, Norman Reedus said that he couldn't stand that. Like, he told Robert Kirkman, he's like, no, I want my stuff back. Get me my stuff. He's like, no, your character's more than a crossbow. You're more than a vest. No, give me my stuff. Like, that's funny. I love hearing little things like that. So Dwight, it's messed up what he's been through. And this is what I don't like. They try to make him into a sympathetic character. Like, I don't want to sympathize with Dwight. He has done so much stuff to Daryl, and I think was he not the one that killed I want to say her name was who died last season with the crossbow through the eye?
Oh, wasn't it the nurse?
The nurse. But what was her name?
I don't know. I completely forgot about it. I completely forgot she even died.
Yeah, and Dwight killed her with his crossbow. So he's done that. He's shot Daryl. He's done some really stupid stuff. And they basically have made him into this, semi-sympathetic character. So the two women that he was with, in the episode with that we saw last season, where they were trying to escape from Negan's men, and Daryl helped them, and then they stole his motorcycle. He was basically, that was his wife and his wife's sister. What happened, you find this out, is that Negan wanted to marry his wife's sister, but she died. So since he couldn't marry his wife's sister, when Dwight comes back to the Saviors, he basically offers Negan his wife to have as Negan's wife, and of course to make things square between them. And of course Negan also took an iron to his face, which is why his face looks like that. So yeah, he's been through some stuff, but I still want him to die. Those are my thoughts on Dwight and what they try to do this episode. So Dwight is trying to break Daryl. He also, at one point, you know how they took a picture of Glenn's remains? He put that picture in his cell for Daryl to look at, and Daryl loses it. Like, he just breaks down at that point. And at one point, I guess Dwight went out to do something for Negan. There was like a replacement dude that brought Daryl the food. He didn't lock the door. And he gets out. And of course, Negan and his men just around him. It was like all a trap. And the thing that you find out about Negan in this episode, he is constantly testing people, even his own people. He's constantly testing their loyalty. At one point, he offers Dwight to basically have a night with his wife or his ex-wife, but he turns him down. And you have to wonder, like, was Negan just testing him there? And like, if he had taken him up on his offer, what was going to happen to Dwight? So it seems like he really likes to toy with people. But they get Daryl surrounded before he can escape. And there's a scene where Negan starts asking his men like what their names are, and they all say, "I'm Negan, I'm Negan, I'm Negan." He kind of tries to, I guess, punk him with Lucille the Bat. I can't just call it the Bat. I have to call it Lucille. It's almost like a character itself. But he tries to like psych him out, and he can't get to Daryl, so they put him back in the cell. Then later they bring him out after they torture him some more. And he asks Daryl, like, what's your name? And after a while, Daryl just goes, I'm Daryl. And like, you think like Negan's like gonna kill him or something like that, and like even Dwight wants to kill him. And at one point, Dwight has this conversation with Daryl, basically saying, I had people that I was looking out for. That's why I made the decisions that I made. And Daryl's like, I understand that. And that's why I make the decisions that I make. Basically, you've gone the opposite direction, and I'm over here, but for the same reason, between Dwight and Daryl. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So apparently Negan's very patient when it comes to breaking people, but it was hard to see Daryl go through this. But the cool thing is that it makes Daryl seem even cooler as a character, because he's not going to be broken even by someone as imposing as Negan. He even you get the sense that he feels like he belongs there because he blames himself for what happened to Glenn. I think at one point one of the guys even says, like, your friend died because of you. I think it was Dwight, actually. So really good episode. But I am really getting tired of the separate storylines that we've got going on. I give it a 9 out of 10 just because it was really strong, really good character development. And Negan, as much as I hate him for what he did on the season premiere, you gotta love his mannerisms and the fact that like he's always smiling. He's almost, you know what he's like? He's like Heath Ledger's Joker. He does horrible things, but he's so unpredictable that you just can't help but be like, what is he going to do next? What is he going to do next? But I don't know if that's how you feel about him from what you've seen so far.
I'd like to take Lucille to his head, honestly, but I love him as a bad guy. It's so hard to find just villains in shows that are just like, they're just evil and they don't like do any of the bad guy tropes of just like, oh, I'm gonna wait and see like what you're doing. It's like, no, like when he was trying to like get Rick to understand, it's like, I own you. It wasn't like I'll be back in a week and he just like no, it's like the entire first episode was him just like breaking Rick. Just like, I'm not giving you a second to breathe. We're doing this until you are shattered.
Yeah.
And I loved that. And I kind of hope he doesn't die, honestly. Like, I want him to be there until like the end. Because there are very few villains that I find like that I end up really, really liking because
that
like,
are compelling.
They always like do stupid things. Just like, why do that? Just do, like, if that's a really bad thing that I'm gonna like say here is like, if you're gonna be evil, do it. Don't give the good guys a chance to like stop you. Like, if I was in the position of like a bad person, I was like, oh, I'm gonna like, this bomb is gonna kill millions of people. I'll put, like a 5-day timer on it. And then I'll tell everyone in that city about it. So there's like a chance. Like, no, it's like, if I want to make a point, it's like, here's a bomb, here's a city, I'm gonna kill these people and make my point. It's like, I can do this anywhere, fear me. But so many bad guys just like, oh, here it is. It's like, how'd you go see? One, did you find it? No? Okay. I'm like, no. Like, I think one other villain that I can think of was the villain from Heroes. I can't remember what his name was. It was like Silas or something. Sylar, yes.
Yeah.
That was probably one of my favorite villains of all time, just because like he just killed. There wasn't like, he didn't stop for anyone. There was like kids, women, men. It's like, no. It's like he has like a goal and he just goes for it. Like, I love that in a villain. It's like, do what you want to do and what you're meant to do as a character, and don't like, there might be a chance for the good guys. Like, no, it's like, if he had them, it's like they were done. They were pretty much gone. I also like villains that constantly keep you guessing because that makes them real to me. Yes. What we see with Negan, I think I might have said this in the when we reviewed the season premiere, but Negan has this god complex. Like when he did the thing with Rick and Carl and almost making Rick chop off Carl's arm or hand, that was very much like an Abraham and Isaac setup. But who's the one that made him, that told him to do it, and then who's the one who stopped him? It was Negan taking the role of God in that part. So when he after in that scene where he asks all of his men, like, what, who are you? And they go, I'm Negan. He then turns to Daryl, he says, see, the thing is, I'm everywhere. So like, oh, he's saying he's omnipresent. Now it's like, first it was control, now it's I'm everywhere. He definitely has a god complex. Like, I like that they're slowly revealing like these little parts of how he considers himself to be a god in this world. And that's a very dangerous person to deal with. Someone who, and the only thing I can think of that could possibly be his downfall in the future is maybe his hubris and his pride. But I like what I see so far. And,
Granted, he did kill Glenn in a very horrific way, but you kind of that's the quickest surefire way to get your audience to hate someone is have them do something horrible that they will hate him for.
Yeah,
and it worked.